pre-conversation really got to the point where we were able to name core ideas in each of our traditions that, frankly, are hurtful and painful to the other, right? That's real. There are teachings within each of our traditions that it's painful for the other to hear. But as has been so beautifully articulated, we need to get to a place where we can have those on political issues and on theological issues. I worry sometimes about us getting hung up exclusively on those issues. So there's again this issue of finding balance and navigating that, but not dodging them either, because they are really important. I do want to echo, of course, the value that I see, not just in building relations, being able to deal with civic issues together, but the learning that we each do when we learn about another community, another tradition. I can't speak to the experience of growing up Muslim in America, but I can speak to the experience of growing up Jewish in America, my own experience, and that of a couple of generations of students I've worked with now. And as an American Jew, oftentimes you understand your Jewish identity in counterpoint to the predominant Christian society, right? So we, without even always realizing it, have in many cases learned a lot about ourselves in comparison to the Christians around us in the Christian society. Sometimes, unfortunately, it shapes our own understanding of our own identities, and so I have lots of conversations also with Jewish students who understand their Jewish identity in very Christian terms, and that's a different story. But growing up as a Jewish kid in America, in most places, you're not having that experience of learning about Islam and understanding your Jewish identity as where there are those differences, where there are the similarities. And for most colleges, the very earliest that those conversations are really happening, and there's just so much learning to do. And Kay spoke about the concept of submission in Islam. When I first encountered that idea and understanding what that means in Islam versus how Jews understand our relationship with God, there's similarity, there's difference, there's a lot of nuance, a lot of depth there, helped me better understand how Jews think about our relationship with God. These are beautiful things, there's incredible learning, and it only happens in these kinds of contexts. I want to really just make one final point. The concern has been raised about ignorance or antipathy to the idea of interfaith engagement. I want to suggest something slightly different. Working with college students, working with young adults, I do see a generational difference. I think that in this upcoming generation, there is much less reluctance about the idea. There's a broad sense that interfaith engagement is good, that dialogue is good, that interaction is good, and that should give us all hope. I think that is a real difference. I think the number of folks who, as they move on in their lives, are going to seek out the sort of involvement that you all have sought out is going to increase. I do worry, though, about I don't even want to say apathy, I want to say where it fits into the priority list. Just to say, I think if you were to ask virtually any of the Jewish AU students that I work with, they would say, absolutely, Jewish-Muslim dialogue is important, it's valuable, I see it as a great way of learning, I see it as good for the country, I see it as good for the world, all of these things. But they're focused on so many things, and frankly, our community institutions are focused on so many things. Muslim community institutions are Jewish community institutions. There are pressing political issues that require our attention. There are community building issues. There's educating our young. There's supporting families in economic crisis. There are all sorts of things pulling for our attention, vying for our resources and our energy. And so I think there's a question, an important conversation to be had, not with this younger generation, not about whether interfaith dialogue is a good thing, but rather is it among the handful of things that our communities are really prepared to make a priority. It's probably politically incorrect for anyone to say no, but I think we would be well served by our communities having an honest conversation about that, because there's potentially a disconnect there, not because young people aren't committed to this in theory, but because we all, at the end of the day, only have so many hours, we only have so many dollars, we only have so many brain cells, so it's that too. And there's a lot of good work to be done, and this is a key area, but it's forgive me that this is a little bit mundane and not as beautiful or philosophical as some of the points that have been raised, but I think if we're really talking about barriers, especially when I look to the next generation, I think it's needs to be a piece of the conversation. But I will say in closing that the opportunity to spend most of my waking hours around young adults is my source of hope. That the next generation, they're not perfect, but the passion I see, the commitment to service I see, the idealism I see, I am as concerned as we all are about the things going on in our world today, and I don't think we're solving these problems tonight or tomorrow, but I am hopeful for what the coming years hold because of the amazing young people, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, other that I get to interact with every day on this campus that are extraordinary, and I live long enough to see the impact that I am really confident that we can make on the world.
Thank you all for those enlightening, eloquent words. I am going to exercise the moderator's prerogative by asking just one question. I have three in front of me, but I don't intend to ask all three. I'm fairly confident that this is a sympathetic audience, so rather than preaching to the converted, if you will, I might ask you to think about how we take some of the teachings or some of the observations here and do something with them. So with that in mind, the question I would like to ask the panelists is, what strategies have you found that have influenced your success in meaningful cross-faith engagement? I think strategies are very important once we finish with the analysis of the problem, when we look ahead optimistically to what is to be done. And so I ask you, what strategies have affected your success?
Well, here I'll invoke my favorite four-letter word that begins with F. Food, food, and more food. That's always a key ingredient to bringing people together. And when people break bread together, it lowers tensions, it creates a safe space. There was a recent article in the Washington Post about some folks in Texas, these two white guys who had weapons and were harassing a local mosque. And then these two Muslim guys from the mosque, and they agreed to get together, and they went to the Dairy Queen, so it doesn't even have to be good food. And they ended up talking for 3 hours. And they didn't agree on everything, they didn't solve the world's problems or all their problems, but they came away, at least according to the article, they came away with some mutual respect, with having learned things about the others. And the white guys agreed to stop harassing the mosque. The other things I would say is, when you are forming a group, you want to have something more than a one-off event. You want to keep doing it, have regular meetings. JIDS has monthly meetings. Sisters of Shalom has monthly meetings. And when you keep doing it, and here I want to address a point that Sahar made about, and also the mom bringing up taboo, very hot button, difficult topics. Before you bring those up in the interfaith environment, I think it's important to create a safe space so that people feel comfortable. So maybe the first couple of meetings are going to be kind of kumbaya and schmoozing and food, and you're not going to talk about really hot button topics. You're getting to know each other. You're getting to feel relaxed around each other. You're getting to feel out everybody's petals. And then, after that safe space has been created, we in our Sahar and I belong to the same DMV chapter of Sisters of Salam Shalom. We have indeed have had some of these discussions, and either I or Sahar can describe some specific formats that we've had these discussions, which have proved to be very useful. But I want to give folks time to address this issue as well, so I can do that later. Thank you.
Okay. Strategies. First off, I think there are some ground rules that are helpful to follow when you're involved in interfaith dialogue. One is, don't try to convert. That may not be as big an issue in Jewish-Muslim dialogue as it is in, say, Muslim-Christian dialogue, since Jews do not generally try to convert other people, and I think Muslims don't try to convert Jews for maybe bad reasons, but but nonetheless, it's a rule to follow. You don't have to hide the fact that you'd be happy if someone converted. That's a different question. It can't be the objective of the conversation. Another rule is to be honest and yet civil. This has already been discussed before, and I will repeat what was already said by Professor Sahar. Mean what you say what you mean, but don't say it mean. It's just that simple. Another element that I think is very valuable and probably underlooked is interfaith action as opposed to interfaith dialogue. You know, one of the most successful things that I've been involved with is through the charitable organization I work with called the Islamic American Zakat Foundation. We have collaborated with a Jewish agency, and not only, you know, I must admit, in all the years we've only had one Jewish client. We referred to them, but they were referred Muslim clients to us, and not just as a referral. We work collaboratively in helping them. But also, both of us get Christian clients, and we both had worked together in helping them. And that's very important because that's really a way to get people to speak with your actions, and actions speak louder than words. Another element, strategy, is the appeal to common experience. When my mother passed away, at the funerals, we live in a small town of about 6,000 people. My mother was the only, for most of the time we lived there, my mother was the only Muslim woman in the town. And when she passed away, many people were surprised to see that at the funeral, one of her closest friends was a Jewish lady. And of course, he said, you know, what are you so surprised about? Our experiences in this town as teeny minorities was very similar. And so we identified with one another very, very well. That's another element. Another strategy, and this has to do with the question about students and young people. Getting them involved in dialogue is extremely important, as everyone here has recognized, but I found that there's an obstacle to getting them involved in the dialogue, and that is that they feel inadequate to it. They all agree, yes, as was said, nowadays they all agree it's important, it should be done, but they don't want to be the ones to do it. They just don't feel that they're prepared. So what we did with the MSA here at American University was we would have Ask a Muslim Night, in which we'd invite people of any faith to come and ask questions of the Muslims. It was very important to the students that I be there, even though I would try real hard not to say anything. I would let the students have the first shot of answering, and when they absolutely wouldn't answer, I would answer, and then I would let them have a second shot at adding and expanding and filling in to what I had said. This I think helps to get them to have the confidence to represent, and I think that may be something that might be useful in getting more events at which you have young people taking more and more of the initiative. I think I had one more point. Oh yeah, regarding the hot button topics, I just don't think, if you follow these rules, I don't think it needs to be as explosive as everybody fears. And I'll give you two examples, although neither is perfect, I'll admit, for what we're talking about here tonight. One was where we did discuss the Palestinian-Israeli issue. It was not technically an interfaith discussion. It was a political group that had invited a Jewish speaker and a Muslim speaker, I was the Muslim speaker, to talk about the Palestinian-Israeli dispute. The Jewish speaker spent most of his time addressing the situation in Europe, the Holocaust, the desperation of the Jews at finding a safe place on earth, and the feeling that it was necessary to have a Jewish state in Palestine. I talked mostly about the effect of the establishment of the Jewish state in Palestine on the indigenous people. Afterwards, as I and the Jewish speaker were chatting, one of the attendees came up to us and was very disappointed. Very disappointed. He said, "Nothing you two said contradicted one another." Surprise. The other one is not perfect because it's not about interfaith dialogue, it's about intrafaith dialogue. But as anyone should know, the most explosive situations are with the people closest to you. You know, and this was a Sunni Shia dialogue that I was involved in organizing here on the American University campus in 2007. And I can't tell you how many people said to me, "You're making a huge mistake." It was very hard to get a Sunni participant because they all said this was going to be a disaster. It was going to make a bad situation much, much worse. You know, what was I thinking? And don't do it. We held the event, and there were mostly Shia attendees, even though the Shias are a minority here. But it's like if you have a dialogue about women's issues, it's mostly women who are going to show up. If you have one about racism, it's mostly black people who are going to show up. It's because the other side doesn't think there's an issue, right? That's the problem. But it was highly successful. So successful that the Islamic Society of North America, 2 months later, scheduled in its regional meeting a similar dialogue and asked me to MC it. Although in their dialogue, they wouldn't let the people stand up and ask questions. They just submit them on cards because they were still afraid that people would get out of hand. But it was extremely successful, and without going on to all the good things that followed out of it, there was a whole train of things that good things that came out of it. It was maybe one of the most successful things I've ever been involved with. So I do think that we shouldn't let the fear of explosiveness prevent us from going ahead and knowing that the kind of strategies that we've all talked about can be used to make a success out of it.
All right, I'll start with food, as my friend Kay here mentioned, which is of course a very important factor that brings people together. However, I've also been a member of a group called Slim Peace, which is trying to achieve two equally challenging tasks, which are making peace and losing weight. Two very difficult challenges. So for this particular group, you know, it's not advisable to really break bread. They can break carrots. That would be a very effective strategy for them, because if they break bread, you're not going to achieve the goals of losing weight. Maybe making peace, but not losing weight. So that's just something a little bit funny, but it's the truth. The group really exists, and I think somebody already knows about it. So it's here also in Washington, D.C. It's a blessing to be living in this area, by the way, and be a member of all of these great initiatives and all of these great groups. Also, speaking of food, we have a very good event coming up on October 17th called Spread Hummus, Not Hate. Myself and many of the friends here in the room, Dan and my friend Andra there, we call her the matchmaker of the interfaith community, because she connects everybody together, right? So the strategies for having a successful interfaith is having somebody like Andra who connects everybody in the community together, right? And also having structure, organization, definitely that's very important. Also having sustainability, as you said, being sustainable and consistent and keeping active. Don't just do it once and disappear. In JIDS, we've always been having monthly meetings on a regular basis, so that's very important. Bring in engaging and intelligent and committed speakers who know their topic well and are passionate about it. You really feel the passion. Like when Kay was talking to everybody in the panel, I can just feel the energy. I can feel the energy in the room is very positive, and it's really coming to me in a very strong way. So that's very important. Bring people who are really passionate about the topic, who know about it well, who are experts on the topic and can speak well to it. And bringing youth remains to be a very, very important challenge. I cannot say that we succeeded. That's one thing we really need to work on. My older son, whenever I tell him, I'm going to this, interfaith event, do you want to come? The first question he asks is, are there going to be young people my age? Anyone is going to be my age? And he has a point. I mean, you know, he is 20 or 21, he wants people in their 20s to engage with them, you know. He's gonna be bored if we're all just 25, 30, my age, you know. So he wants people his age, which is